Hello, and welcome back to MetalDisciple.com's Metalheads podcast. My name is George.
And I'm Buke.
And this is episode 4. You may have noticed that our intro song is different than it used to be. You also may notice that this was the song that we featured last week from Men Without Armies. That was Metal Rain. Brennan was kind enough to allow us to use it as our intro, and I thought it would really work well because of the whole metal is my religion thing and Metal Disciple, I just thought it would be really cool, and Brendan thought it would be cool, so that's our new intro.
And thank you for all the support that you've given us.
In all of our episodes so far, we've talked a little bit about vinyl and our love for vinyl, my continuing love for vinyl, Buke's growing love for vinyl, and last week I came to the realization, up until recently, I thought it was great that he was getting into vinyl, because now I had somebody to enjoy this with me, and I felt better about having him along when I was shopping, when he's actually looking for stuff too.
Because in the past, I would look over your shoulder as you were, buying them.
Sure, and just wandering around and, talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then last week, a cold realization settled over me.
Yes.
As I was like, wait a minute, he's not my vinyl companion. He's now my vinyl competition.
Yes, I am.
I realized this when he picked up a copy of the first King Giant album that I would have devoured a busload of nuns for. And I was like, wait a minute, I want that one. That's not how it's supposed to work. It's about me. Me.
And then I took it to a different level when, to finish your Opeth collection, you needed Ghost Reveries. And the other day, lo and behold, added to my collection.
He sends me a picture.
Yep.
Texts me a picture. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, that's Ghost Reveries. I'm like, what, you find that online? He's like, no, I got it at a store. I'm like, it's in your possession? Ah!
Yes. It's nice. It sounds great.
Yeah.
So, it's turning into one of those things now where, just like you said with vinyl, with there being, first off, decades of music that I have to go back and catch up with, that I don't have on vinyl, and the internet being what it is, and thousands of eBay sellers out there.
Yep,
it's made it easy for me to quickly try and catch up to you.
Yes, and you mentioned the other day how you had found Discogs.com and you started using that, and I love that site. That's a tool that I use all the time, both for cataloging all my vinyl, and that's also where I probably pick up half of my online vinyl is through sellers on there. It's kind of eBay-like in that sense. Are all
the sellers you're finding on there? Because I'm finding this, though, for the most part right now, they're international sellers.
There's all kinds. You can sort it by, the type of money and things like that, but, most of the cool metal stuff's coming from over in Europe and stuff like that. So I leave it on there, and, you have to sort of run to Google real quick, look at the exchange rate to see what it'll actually cost. And the worst part about it, the prices aren't so bad. It's the shipping that kills you.
Oh.
It'll be 30 euros for an album. I'm like, all right, let's look for $45 or whatever. I'm like, that's all right. That's reasonable for a hard-to-find album. And then they're like, and 20 euros for shipping. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, when I told you the other day, I sent you a message. I bought an Opeth bootleg, Farewell to Providence, a very limited edition. I think maybe 500 copies were made of it. Some bootleg from Germany.
Okay.
Itself, it cost $60 for the record, and shipping was another $25, $30.
Yeah, that's just, it hurts.
Yeah. So all I have to say is watch your back.
Yeah. We're going to be going shopping today, and it's going to be survival of the fittest in the vinyl aisles. So I was thinking we ought to cover some topics from the news, starting with this episode. I've been looking through the headlines for the last week and a few things that stood out to me and as well as to you. One thing I saw was that there's a new job for a cowboy album coming out. They don't have an album title yet or a release date, but I thought I'd mention them because I'm always railing on about how much I hate metalcore bands and deathcore bands and stuff like that. Maybe they kind of fall into a deathcore kind of thing. I don't know. Personally, I feel like they're a lot more technical and perhaps progressive than a lot of the stupid metalcore bands that you hear.
I think they were the ones who were kind of as the genre was really rising up, they were kind of one of the ones that really rode that wave, and I think they are on top of it.
It's almost like a technical grindcore. You know, not like Napalm Death is like really raw, whereas Job for a Cowboy is very tight and precise and clean, but so brutal.
And speaking on a quick side note in the news, did you see the numbers for, we mentioned it a couple episodes ago, the Whitechapel, Our Endless War?
I saw it. I didn't read it.
It debuted in the top 10.
Wow.
Debuted at like number 8 or 9.
Good for them.
Selling like, I'm going to go on a limb here, I think it was 13 to 14,000 copies. So
that's a lot for the first week.
It is. And the question was, I saw somebody ask, is when Job for a Cowboy, this new album, does it come out? If Whitechapel was able to see those numbers, will Job for a Cowboy able to see those similar numbers as well, or surpass them?
I expect they will. I mean, aren't they kind of a Hot Topic kind of band too?
You see their stuff.
Trina likes them, doesn't she?
No, she's not. They're not pretty. To me, Job for a Cowboy was always like a Suicide Silence.
I think they're heavier than Suicide Silence, but
yeah, they are. But more the grindcore aspect in it. But it'd be interesting to see what they put out.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. There's also a new Belphegor album coming out, Conjuring the Dead, that comes out on, it looks like August 11th. I don't know if you've heard those guys before.
I've heard the name.
Their last album, Blood Magic Necromance. Oh my god, that album is a monster. It's like it combines the best of like death metal and symphonic black metal into this just monstrous, evil mass. So I'm really curious.
Is it, when you say symphonic black metal stuff, is it like Dimmu style?
Kind of, but with like a much heavier, raw death metal side to it as well. It's fucking evil. I really can't wait to hear it.
Where are they from?
Belphegor's from Austria.
Can't think of any other band from Austria right now.
Abigor.
Okay.
Alright, we took a quick little break there, unplanned, thanks to the loud assholes next door mowing with what sounded like a 747. So getting back to the news, this week we learned that the new Opeth album, Pale Communion, will be pushed back from June to August 25th.
It broke my heart.
It did.
We started hearing ramblings around earlier in the week. Their single from the album was supposed to be released, and that got pushed back. We still weren't hearing any reason why, and then this announcement came out.
Mike said they couldn't get their shit together.
Yeah, it said that there was something with the record labels and them getting stuff to the label and everything. I don't exactly know what that means. Is this something we should be concerned about? I don't know.
I don't think
so.
It's just
the record's probably done. It has been done. It's probably just stuff that happens in the background.
Yep. Something else I saw this week that really piqued my interest was that Banger Films and filmmaker Sam Dunn have been tapped to do a Black Sabbath documentary. I love everything Sam has done. Stuff like Metal, A Headbanger's Journey.
That's what first opened my eyes to him. He's amazing work with that documentary.
Yeah, and Global Metal. He did the Flight 666 Iron Maiden movie. So,
in terms of actually metal documentaries, his was the one that opened my eyes to documentaries, really, because I never watched the documentary until I first saw his Headbanger's Journey.
Yeah, and he did a Rush documentary that was pretty cool. He also did Metal Evolution.
Did he do that?
Yeah, he had that series of where each episode was like a different subgenre. Yeah, that was really interesting. I've been trying to get my wife to watch that.
I think I just saw, maybe it was a crowdfunding campaign for the lost chapter.
Yeah,
for that was. You see that for the extreme metal.
Yeah,
chapter like black metal, grindcore stuff.
Yeah,
great work.
Sam Dunn is so cool. I wish he was my friend.
It's nice that Tony and all the rest of the members, are still alive. That they can get something put together.
So there was another thing in the news this week. You want to tell this one?
The other day, Black Label Society played a live show, joined by Phil Anselmo.
Nice.
They played I'm Broken.
Cool.
Interesting thing about that, and while I wanted us to talk about it in the news, is that there's always been talk that if Pantera was to start up again, that Zach would step in to fill Dimebag's shoes.
Yeah, I've seen lots of times where he gets asked about that.
And he keeps saying, No.
Up to Vinny.
Yeah, it's up to Vinny. You know, he keeps saying that Vinny says that there will never be another Pantera
Right.
without Dime and stuff. But I thought that was interesting that for the first time it was Zach and Phil together. Well, probably not the first time. They'd probably done it at different gatherings or something before playing other Pantera songs. But I think it was so interesting that we got a little sneak peek of it.
Yeah, who knows where it may lead. Mm-hmm. Time will tell.
Talking about Zach stepping in, you know, we mentioned it last week with Suicide Silence. Mm-hmm. What would be your take on Zach coming in? If Pantera was to start up again with Zach Wilde, how would you feel about that?
I hadn't really given it much thought, partly because I don't think it'll happen.
If there's somebody who could fill his shoes, skill-wise.
Certainly, but is it the same? It's not. I mean, are we talking playing a show, or are we talking about recording an album? Because if we're talking about playing a show to just get some Pantera songs out there for the fans, I'm okay with that. I don't think it would make any sense for them to do an album, and I can't imagine that they would.
I don't see so either. I know. Obviously, the demand is there.
Sure.
If they were to put out a new album, man, that would sell like crazy.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like with Queen. They do concerts, and people will come in and sing since Freddie's not around anymore. It's an interesting show. But then when they go and record an album with somebody else, that's not really for me.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into the new releases for this week. There's a fair number of them, but I'm going to just give the highlights. First up is the new Agalloch album, The Serpent and the Sphere. Do you listen to these guys?
No. Seen a lot of press around them.
I've gotten into them a little bit more recently, and I really enjoy what they do. I got the promo for this about a week ago, and it's pretty damn good. I'm sure everybody's going to be beside themselves with joy when this album drops this week. Another new album coming out this week is a band that I'm sure you probably haven't heard of, because I hadn't heard of them before I got the promo. This band's called December Noir, and their album is A Discouraged Believer. This is a German death doom band. Like I said, I hadn't heard of them before. I got the promo. I listened to it. I thought it was pretty cool. I haven't listened to it extensively yet, so I can't form completely informed opinion, but I liked what I heard, so check them out. Wendy Dio is once again being a busy bee. There's a new Dio live album this week.
I did not know.
Live in London, Hammersmith Apollo 1993.
I'll definitely be getting that.
Yeah. I may joke about the fact that she's releasing all these live albums, but I'm still going to get them because it's Dio.
Yeah, there's just something about the live Dio that I just love.
I almost picked up Dio Holy Diver Live triple vinyl recently, but I decided to give it a listen first. I went on Spotify and listened to it, and I wasn't all that impressed with... The sound quality was reasonably okay, but Ronnie's voice wasn't as good as usual, so I passed on that one.
That's odd.
I am going to give this a listen before I buy it. Another band that I'm sure you're aware of, and we were just talking about their singer, Down, has their new EP.
Shirt I'm wearing today?
Down 4, Part 2. I didn't even notice you were wearing the shirt. I heard a little bit of that, but it was in the car with the windows down, so I couldn't hear it real well. I haven't gotten a good take on the new EP yet. Have you heard it?
I heard the single from it. I tell you, their style from when I first heard them on NOLA to where they've kind of evolved to now on their last EP to this one. Mm-hmm. The kind of the southern rock sound that they have is kind of evolving more. It's hard to describe. It's more southern rock, but then they're kind of like a sludge sound with it. It's hard to describe how they're evolving, but it's Down.
Yeah,
I'm a fan. I'll be getting it.
I was listening to. I think I listened to like the first two songs. And the first song, I was like, is this actually them? I couldn't even tell that was them. Again, driving at a high speed with the windows down. So, but I was like, is this the right album? So I wasn't quite sure it was them. And by the second track, I was like, yeah, this is Down.
I wish they probably would have put these out maybe as one whole album. I don't personally like the whole EP release schedule. Wait a year, release 4 or 5 tracks in another couple years.
It is kind of annoying.
I guess it's their way of maybe trying to keep your name out there, maybe, or get excitement each time it comes back up. Or
it just keeps them touring. And they're like, tour, record, tour.
Mm-hmm. I think this is 4 parts, 4 different EPs make this up. Like the package that I think they're going for.
Mm-hmm. Another album out this week is a band called Gun Barrel, and their new album, Damage Dancer. If I recall, these guys are from Germany. I haven't listened to them in a while, but if I recall, German power metal, kind of in the like Running Wild, Blind Guardian sort of vein. Yeah.
The one listen, I hadn't thought of these guys too. I saw the list of what we're going to discuss today, and these guys, while they don't, if I remember correctly, don't have like the Blind Guardian type of sound that they've evolved into on their later albums.
Mm-hmm.
It does kind of have, like you said, that more true
metal, yeah,
sound to it.
Next up is a band called High Spirits, and their new album, You Are Here. I don't recall where they're from. I remember I got a promo for their last album, and I listened to it, and it kind of took me back a little because I was like, wow, this is like really dated 80s, almost like hair metal. Not hair metal, but I'm not in the like the hairspray and spandex sense. Just a very like hard rock metal. And at first I was like, what? You kidding me? But I listened to it and I was like, oh, this is actually
when I think like 80s hard rock, kind of think like a stereotypical like Quiet Riot type of thing, like a Metal Church.
No, not even a Metal Church. Come on, that's thrash. This was more like, I don't know, like Rat or...
You know, it's funny, Rat was on the tip of my tongue too.
But not like that either. It just had that feel of like very simple power chords and catchy vocals, and I dug it. So I was like, oh, so when I saw this new album was coming out, I thought I'd at least give it a mention. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I've got a promo, but it's probably going to be pretty cool. Next up is a really cool band that I've liked for a few years now called Hour of Penance, and their latest album, Regicide. These guys are brutal, super heavy, Flesh God Apocalypse kind of stuff. Very technical, very clean sounding. Really good stuff. I recommend it. Then there's the new supergroup, Kill or Be Killed. I didn't realize this was a supergroup when I got the promo. I was like, Kill or Be Killed. Sounds like a lame hardcore band or something.
The name is pretty stupid.
But I just happened to listen to a quick snippet and I was like, wow, that sounds kind of like Max Cavalera. And so I looked at the bio sheet and I was like, it is Max Cavalera. Wow. And that dude from Mastodon, what's his name? Troy.
On bass.
And another guy that I do not wish to mention. I haven't listened to the album too much yet, but it was not what I expected it to be. It sounded like it had some potential, at least when Max was singing. It was a little more commercial than Max's typical fare.
What do you think of these put-together supergroups?
I take it on a band-by-band basis. If it's good, it's good. If it sucks, it sucks.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about this previously, so...
I can't think of any right now. Do any stand out? Do any stand out in your head as really being good?
Nothing comes to mind.
Nothing real comes to mind either. And, I just know the ones that have failed recently.
Such as?
There was that one Jason Newsted group that he was in. What was that Super Group?
Supernova or something?
Supernova or something like that.
That was based on a TV show.
Yeah.
Wasn't like Tommy Lee or somebody?
I think he may have been in that.
Yeah. All right, well, moving on, we've got Prong and Ruining Lives. Ever been a Prong fan?
No.
No? Prong is interesting. They're one of those bands that they've just always kind of been around since, well, a long time ago, 90s. And I've picked up most, if not all, of their albums. And I like them to an extent, but they never really grabbed me. And I know Tommy Victor's done, like, I know it's been years, but I think he played with Danzig for a while. I'm not sure what else he's been doing, but I have a respect for Prong. I haven't listened to the new album yet, but I intend to. Next is another band. I haven't heard the album yet. This is Titan Blood and their new album, Death. These guys are darlings of the true cult black metal underground. Their albums sound really raw and evil. I've never really gotten into them, but I know they're pretty popular, so I thought I'd give them a mention. And finally... Probably my favorite album coming out this week is the new Valenfire album, Splinters. Gregor McIntosh from Paradise Lost. We weren't sure if there was going to be another Valenfire album. The first Valenfire album was written by Gregor as a means of dealing and expressing his thoughts and feelings over the passing of his father. So it wasn't sure as to whether he would continue on with the band once he'd gotten
the feelings
once he'd worked through that. I had hoped that he would, and now here they are with another album, and let me tell you, it's pretty crushing.
I would definitely, hey, whatever you recommend to me, I'll check out.
I recommend checking it out, all of you.
If you had to say, what are they similar to?
Similar to, I can't really, nobody really jumps to mind as that might be similar, but
it's in the same vein as like a Paradise Lost?
Maybe an early Paradise Lost. It's kind of death metalish, but not in a thick, heavy, brutal sort of way. The guitars are kind of chunky and doomy a little bit. The vocals are sort of harsh, but not over-the-top Cannibal Corpse harsh.
Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to just... It's just cool.
Cool.
You should check it out. So, what have you been listening to this week?
So, going back to my vinyl addiction right now, I've said maybe last episode or the one before that, I'm really getting into the sound that when vinyl records were big. Mm-hmm. 70s classic rock and stuff.
You going non-metal on me?
This band's on Metal Blade.
Okay.
I've been really digging these guys since I found them. I don't know. I found them just browsing the internet, looking for new stuff, kind of in that same vibe. It's a band from Chicago.
Uh-oh.
Female fronted.
Oh, not who I thought it was.
Band called Mount Salem.
Oh, yeah.
And their album Endless.
Yeah, I heard them. I was actually kind of... I'm not always very pleased with female-fronted doom bands. Not that I have anything against females. I just don't care for how they tend to sound. Castle...
In the sense that the female herself, or how the band...
Yeah, I just don't care how they sing over doom metal. I mean, I don't care for Blood Ceremony, or... There's another one I can't think of. But Mount Salem is one that I do love how they sound, and Castle is another.
Mm-hmm. So I've been... It's, again, more of that 70s style guitars and organs, doomy. Great little album. Released back in March through Metal Blade. I've been listening to it this past week, and I'm also going to hit you with a double one.
Uh-oh.
A band called, correct me if I'm wrong, Avatarium.
Oh, yes,
another female.
The Candlemass.
Yes.
Yes, I think Jenny is her name.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, they are phenomenal. That's, of course, Leif Edling from Candlemass, his new project, and yeah, I reviewed that on the site. It's brilliant.
When I was finding Mount Salem, they popped up, hey, similar style, similar vein. So I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I listened to Saviors, that kind of same sound again. And
I ran right out and bought it on vinyl, didn't I?
You certainly did. So that's what I've been listening to this week. It's weird. The female, while they don't have that real Candlemassy, doomy voice.
It's not super heavy.
It's not. But it's real gloomy over the musical undertones that go with it.
Right on.
Really makes it for a really cool sound.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we're on the same wavelength this week. My band this week is the new Bloody Hammers called Under Satan's Sun. This album isn't actually out for another week or two, I think. But I've been listening to the promo for the last couple of days, and holy hell, these guys are cool. I liked their last album, Spiritual Relics, I believe it is. I reviewed that on the site, and I was really happy with that release. I like this one even more.
Oh.
They have that same retro doom sound. The last album was a little heavier. Not in an aggressive, heavy sort of way, but just like a louder guitar sound. This album is a little more minimalist. The sound and the guitars and the drums, and the bass, they all sort of sit back a little, and the vocals are really the star of the show. And the vocal style is pretty similar to the last album, but I felt it was a little cleaner, and I was racking my brain trying to figure out who it reminded me of. And I still think there's somebody that it reminds me of that I haven't been able to pin down yet, but to me, it sounded a little bit like a cross between Witchcraft and Antichrist Superstar era Marilyn Manson. Some of the more laid back songs on Antichrist, like the Mirror song, what the hell was that called?
I can't remember it.
The Reflecting Mirror or something like that. Yeah, so I definitely heartily recommend Bloody Hammers when that comes out. So last week we played some music by Men Without Armies, and I thought it was pretty cool, including some music. And so I decided to create a new segment called Unsigned Bands, where people either can submit music, like we mentioned last week, if you're an unsigned band, or even if you're a signed band and you just want your music on here. But, I thought maybe it'd be cool to...
But if you send it and you say, hey, review guy, or hey, music site, check this out.
Well,
you might not meet this. You might not make it in this segment.
You might not. But yeah, if you're in a band, signed or unsigned, and you want to get played, we'll certainly play your music, even if you're signed. But this segment, Unsigned Bands, and this week's band comes from Norway. They're called Tonic Breed, and their latest album, Outsold. I got a CD from these guys in the mail the other day, and most of the music that I get for review is digital, but I do get the occasional CD in the mail. Some of that stuff that I get on CDs pretty strange looking. I don't always listen to it if it looks, if it's just like really bad looking or put together badly, and they don't send me any information or anything. But because this one came from Norway, I was like, this came a long way. I'm going to actually give it a listen. And so I put it on in the car when I was going to the gym. And I was like, wow, this is like some thrash metal here. Like, how there's 80s thrash, and then there's like the new thrash, like we were talking about with like Warbringer and Municipal Waste and stuff like that. These guys really have more of an old school thrash sound. The Metallica, Slayer, stuff like that. And so I was really digging it. And so I'm going to be doing a review for the album this week. I wrote to the guys and said, hey, can we put you on the podcast? And they said yes. So why don't we check out a song from the album now? This is Tonic Breed, and the album's title cut, Outsold. Cool. What'd you think of that?
Just like you said. Exactly.
All right. Well, there's going to be another song from the band at the end of the podcast. So stick around and check that out. So speaking of unsigned bands, I was thinking about something this week, and I wanted to pose you the question, are record labels necessary anymore? And the reason I bring this up is bands like Men Without Armies and Tonic Breed putting out albums by themselves that sound just as good as anything a record label's going to put out. Really, all a record label is a bank. You go to them and say, I want to put out an album, give me money. And then they bend you over, rape you, and ruin your life. Mm-hmm. So does it make more sense for people to self-release their music, get it out on the internet, promote it any way they can? The return on investment is definitely going to be more. You know, a record label takes the majority of profits from an album. They have to recoup their costs. And then even after it's recouped, you only get a small percentage. Whereas if you release it yourself, you have to cover your overhead. And then after that, it's all profit.
I think record labels maybe bring the weight that they have behind them to get your band out there. I think in the sense where you look at Men Without Armies, that's pretty much all they have in the musical product that they have. Now, if they sign with a Metal Blade, they are that branded band.
Right.
Metal Blade has a reputation that goes with them, maybe in the sense that could get them on tours and stuff that
That's
maybe
true.
Being an unsigned band can't get you. Maybe it's a difference from, hey, you're playing some rock bar in some podunk town,
Yeah.
or you're playing the Fillmore.
That's basically the only thing I could think of on the plus column for record labels is that they have the money to promote you. You can record your own music, you can put your own music out there, but as we have seen with our own website and podcast, unless you have a bunch of money to throw at it, not that many people are going to hear about you unless you're real lucky. Mm-hmm. And so that's the only thing I can think of to recommend record labels anymore is the promotion machine.
You even look at these bands that are on labels that we've spoken to in doing our interviews in the past, even from their merchandise sales, they're buying, the record label is giving them money to go out, purchase merchandise. They are having to take that money and almost pay all of it back to the record companies to pay off the merchandise.
Recouping.
Exactly. Now, if you're Men Without Army, hey, you look in this, I mentioned it earlier, this crowdfunding with Kickstarter, Indiegogo, that's, bands have that tool at their disposal now.
Sure.
That if you get enough people to fund your project, hey, there's your album.
There's your promotion.
There's your promotion. There's your tour.
I hadn't thought about that for promotion. That's a good idea.
There's your bus. You know, there's what you need right there. But interesting you brought this up because you might not see this, but in the video game world where Kickstarter has funded some very successful projects from no-name game developers, if the same was to start happening more with music, 'cause I've checked Kickstarter before for metal, there's not a lot of metal on there. At what point, though, are you too big for Kickstarter or for the crowdfunding like that to where you say you don't need a label? Because you look, Men Without Armies, if they were to start a Kickstarter, ask for money, they are a new up-and-coming band.
Yeah.
That's what it's there for, if you ask me.
Sure.
Now, what if that's Anthrax?
I see you also have been listening to Metal Sucks Podcast. I was just going to say, I was listening to their interview with Scott Ian the other day, and Scott was using, I believe it was Indiegogo.
And I think that's what Whitechapel did to fund their DVD that just got funded.
And he was talking about, I believe he was funding a recording of his spoken word show. And he was talking about how it makes much more sense for even a band of Anthrax's stature to own all their music and then license it the way they choose. They bring in a heck of a lot more money than going with a record label who needs to be recouped, who's going to only give them a percentage after they're recouped. It's crazy.
But if you don't have that record label, does that mean then that you, the band, let's say you and I, we have a band. We call it Sons of Destiny.
Oh my gosh. I haven't heard that in a while.
If you and I make an album. We start burning copies. Does that mean you are calling distribution companies? You're getting our product out there?
It's definitely a lot more work. Well, even then, if you're a no-name band, then distributors aren't going to want to work with you. But you can always get up on iTunes.
And that's that thing that labels...
Yes, that is. And the other thing is, you can use Kickstarter and Indiegogo all you want to try and fund things. If nobody knows who you are, you may not get funded. So, you got to weigh what you've got. I mean, there's a local band around here that I really love called A Sound of Thunder. They used Kickstarter to finance their latest album, and they made their goal and then some. They made so much money, they said they're going to do a covers EP for all the fans because, hey, we got the money to do it. So it works for some people, though, they're still fairly regional. Hopefully they will take off soon, but...
So to answer your first question, in this changing landscape of music, and you watch another year, 2 years, streaming is going to be everything.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Streaming is really going to continue to take off, and as they get the rights worked more and more and the royalties come onto these artists, even though what I've heard sometimes it's nickels and dimes.
It is. I've seen, I can't remember who it was, might have been Century Media. Somebody pulled all their albums from Spotify. And, streaming doesn't always work for the obscure metalhead who can't find the music that they like on there. I mean, I will admit Spotify has...
Yeah, I remember one time you said, hey, check this band. I remember you were like speechless for a second that they actually had it.
Yeah, I'm like, wow. They have surprised me on occasion with what they have available, so maybe it'll get better.
The landscape like that's changing, but then again, as the landscape changes for music and bands, it's just another way for more and more bands to get out there, that you're just in this sea of metal bands unsigned, where your music's available for everybody to listen to and everybody to check out, but because you don't have that nuclear blast behind you, you don't have that metal blade with the added weight, pushing your album out.
Yeah.
Maybe you just get lost in the masses.
Could be. I guess we'll have to wait and see the fate of record labels.
What do you think?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Record labels are money. Can't imagine money is going to go away. Money's not going to let itself go away. I figure they'll probably find some way to bind bands to them. But it would be nice if bands, particularly up-and-coming bands, can eventually cast off the shackles of record label oppression and do what they want to do and actually get compensated for it.
Now, one quick, little note here. The friends who we may have who have been in bands, are in bands, the bands we've talked to, what have their experiences been with record labels?
Not great.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. That really takes some of the shine off it, and having, friends that have dealt with record labels, have been dropped from record labels, who put so much time and money and effort into what they do, only to not make any money. They make no money from their CD sales, very little from playing shows, probably some merch, but how much merch do they actually sell? It's tough.
Yeah.
You see a lot of bands these days breaking up, or people leaving bands saying, I can't afford to be in a band anymore.
Yeah, so that's just another thing that goes along with, do you need the label? Do you need do you need that stress of trying to please some executives?
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, you're having to please the music listeners, but you're having to please that guy or girl who's writing up your next contract for your next record. You take that out of the equation. Yeah.
Sell your soul, get heard by the world, maintain your integrity, and dwell in obscurity.
And one last thing with that, I was just saying that also being without a label, I think, brings freedom that bands can do what they want. Change styles if they, want to.
Eat ramen noodles, live in a box.
Yeah, do whatever they want. Okay.
All right, well, another thing, so going back to that Scott Ian interview on Metal Sucks, Scott said something that made me reconsider a view that I had previously. A few months ago, I wrote an article for Metal Disciple called The Defilement and Ruination of Metal Classics. And that was about bands going back and re-recording their albums and re-releasing them, and how much I hate that practice. Who wants to listen to a re-recorded version of a song that they already have and love? It just doesn't come across the same. It may have a better production sound, which was, to me, the reason why I thought they were doing it, but it's just not the same. Manowar does it, and Flotsam and Jetsam did it, stuff like that. I'm not a fan of doing that. However, the way Scott was talking about it made me reconsider my position. He said that bands are re-recording their albums because their original version of the album is owned by a record label, and the record label is, even 25 years later, still taking the lion's share of profits from sales on these albums. But now, because bands can release their own material, if they re-record the album, that's entirely 100% their property, and when they release that, they can reap 100% of the profit. And a lot of these bands need money now. Obviously not Metallica, Anthrax, but I can't fault a band for trying to make a buck when they're getting shafted by an 80s record label deal. I'm still not going to listen to the album, probably. I'm still probably not going to buy it, because I prefer the original. But I can at least sympathize and not condemn them for the practice, having heard this other side of the story.
I can see where they're coming from, totally. When it's laid out like that, you can see why they'd want to walk away with all the profits.
Right.
In that control. Where I have a problem is, you're not saying all the songs are masterpieces, but you're going back and changing it.
Right.
It was already great once.
Right.
You're not any younger.
Yep.
Your voice, you're playing, maybe improved. Probably not.
Probably not.
So you're going back. We don't go back and repaint the Mona Lisa.
Right.
I know it's different there, but that's where I'm against it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, for the most part, against it, at least for me personally. If you want to hear a re-recorded version, fine, more power to you, and great, the band can use the money. I just don't have any desire to go back and listen to something that sounds kind of like what the album that I know sounds like, but there's all those little nuances, the little and little things.
You hear the slides on the guitar, yeah.
And after you've heard a song so many times, those are the little things that you pick up on, and you'll just be like waiting for it. And then you go and you hear a re-recorded version of the same song, and it's a little disturbing because it sounds kind of like the song, but where's that little nuance that I'm used to hearing? It's not there, and it kind of throws you off. Part of why I'm not always a big fan of live albums, too. If it's a really well-done live album, great. Otherwise, I'd rather listen to the song that I know so well.
And Manowar, that doesn't exclude you from being mad at them, but maybe we'll get into that later.
Yeah, they've got other issues. So we've been doing this thing where we talk about our favorite albums from a particular band. We've done Iron Maiden. We've done Judas Priest. This week, you picked the band.
Dio.
Dio.
I'm personally an extremely big fan of Dio. My puppy.
That's right.
His name's Dio.
I think I've heard of him. Of course, I'm a huge Dio fan.
So did you rank your albums this week?
Not yet. I was gonna do something different, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I should let you go first.
Okay, I'll go first.
I'll decide which way. I could go two ways with it. And talk.
I will say this: I'm staying exclusive Dio albums.
Yeah, you know where I'm going.
Believe me, I am a fan of every single thing he does. If I was doing favorite audio discography,
yeah, that's where I was going to originally go. I was like, I'm going to do one from Dio, one from Sabbath, one from Rainbow.
Okay, well, hey, we could do that.
But let's do that. Let's do the top three Dio.
Okay,
and then favorite Rainbow, favorite Sabbath.
Okay, I like that. My top three Dio.
Okay,
Magica.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That was going to be a 3-part concept album.
All right.
It was a later release. I like it a lot. It has that killer track, As Long as It's Not About Love. epic.
Yeah.
Epic singing in that. Number 2, Last in Line.
Mm-hmm.
So number 1 is Holy Diver.
Nice.
The classic Dio album. It's the go-to Dio album that everyone always points to as his best. That's what a lot of sites say. So that's number 1. Going back to Sabbath Dio, Mob Rules. Favorite track off there, Sign of the Southern Cross.
Yeah.
Just gets me every time.
That was one of my first songs I ever heard by Dio. Love it.
And my number 1 Rainbow is Rainbow Rising.
Yeah, I knew that.
My favorite metal song, Stargazer, where it starts off side 2. I can listen to that track 1,000 times nonstop. It's easily in my top 3 metal songs of all time.
Hell yeah. All right, so my list, and this is going to be in order for you.
Finally.
Yes. My number 3 album from Dio, Dream Evil. Songs like I Could Have Been a Dreamer, All the Fools Sailed Away.
Love that song.
Classic stuff. My number 2 album, which may surprise you that it's not my number 1 album, is Holy Diver. The reason I don't go with Holy Diver is because my number 1 was my first Dio album. So it's always going to be my favorite, and that's Sacred Heart. It pisses me off that album doesn't get the respect that the other albums do. It's an incredible album. The title track, Sacred Heart, Fallen Angel, Shoot Shoot, Like the Beat of a Heart, King of Rock and Roll, everything on there. Every single song is great. And it needs to get more respect. So, Sacred Heart, everybody. Check it out. My number 1 Dio Sabbath album, Heaven and Hell. You seem perturbed by that. Come on. Heaven and Hell, one of the greatest Sabbath songs ever.
Yeah.
Children of the Sea, Lady Evil. Come on. Good stuff.
Yeah, I normally like when Dio, I love Dio live. I don't like the live version of Heaven and Hell. How it kind of drags it out.
Yeah, I heard that at the gym once, and it went on for like days.
It goes on for like 37 days.
Yeah. All right, so my number 1 Rainbow album is not the one you chose. I'm going to go with the first album, Blackmore's Rainbow, because it has the mighty, mighty classic Man on the Silver Mountain.
Yeah, it does. But it's not
Stargazer.
It's not Rainbow Rising.
Right.
But it's a killer album. I will give you that.
It is.
It's tough. It's tough.
So there you have it. Those are our favorite Dio albums.
Finally ranked.
Yes, and they're ranked. Let us know what your favorite Dio albums are. So let's move on to our classics of the week. What do you got for us?
My classic this week is from 1985. I'm going to say it wrong again, like I say it wrong every time. Say it for me.
Yngwie.
His 1985 release, Marching Out.
That's Yngwie Malmsteen, by the way.
Thank you very much. This is his second solo album.
I am a Viking.
Yes.
It's not a pod unless I sing badly.
I got it on vinyl this past week. I've been listening to it. Killer album.
Yeah.
I know I say that slogan a lot, that's saying, but that's my classic album I've been listening to, and I recommend checking out this week.
Yeah, my favorite Yngwie album is his third album, I believe, Trilogy.
That's the one with the dragon on the front, right?
Yeah, it's like Yngwie slaying the dragon with his guitar. Pretty cool. All right, well, my classic for this week is Hammerheart by Bathory. Hammerheart is the band's 5th album, released in 1990. Wait, let me rephrase that. They didn't put out 5 albums in 1990. It was released in 1990 and was their 5th album.
Busy bees.
Yes. Well, he was pretty prolific. Bathory, up until this point, was basically one of the first wave of black metal bands. A lot of the second wave black metal bands like Mayhem and Emperor and things like that list Bathory as a black metal influence that inspired them. But Hammerheart, Quorthon changed gears and did what was probably one of the first Viking metal albums. And up to this point, I kind of had an idea of what Bathory was like. I first heard the band on Under the Sign of the Black Mark, another great album. But then a friend came to me with a copy of Hammerheart and said, listen to this. And I'm like, yeah, it's Bathory. But then I listened to it, and I was like, damn, this is different. Viking metal. And I was really into the whole, people now are still really into Vikings and D&D and LARPing and things like that. But at the time, there wasn't a lot of, even in metal, not a whole lot of like fantasy-themed, Viking battle-themed stuff. And so I was like, yes! The songs on this album are all classic. Shores and Flames, Valhalla, Baptized in Fire and Ice, Father to Son, Song to Haul Up High, Home of Once Brave, One Road to Asabe. You cannot go wrong with the Hammerheart album.
Did the band maintain that style going forward?
They did this style on their next release as well, Twilight of the Gods, another incredible classic. Before Quorthon changed gears yet again on Requiem and went sort of a death metal route. But after a few more albums, I think it was with Blood on Ice, he went back to a very Viking, Nordic-themed music once again. The people that know me know that I do not like to fly. I hate flying.
Hate it.
And a few years ago, I had to get on a flight and go to Norway for my sister's wedding. How cool is my sister getting married in Norway?
Very metal.
Very tippy top of Norway, too. Way up above the Arctic Circle. Beautiful country. Oh my gosh. So I had to fly. I hadn't flown in 15 years. Wasn't looking forward to it at all. How do I survive this flight? 3 things. Xanax. Lots of Xanax. Like 2 milligrams of Xanax. Enough to kill a horse. Add some Johnny Walker. A fair amount of Johnny Walker on top of that. And Bathory. Had my headphones in the whole time. When I was flying on the Norwegian airline from London up to Norway. Actually, it was from like London to Oslo. From Oslo to Tromsø. I was listening to Bathory. Nothing quite like listening to Viking metal while flying over the Scandinavian landscape. I realized that Bathory is Swedish and I was in Norway, but it's Viking metal, so
it fits.
It works. That was an experience that I will remember. We're going to wrap this up now, so make sure to check us out on iTunes or wearemetalheads.com.
On Twitter at metalheadspod.
And a Disciple of Metal, that's OV for of. We're also on Facebook, YouTube. Please, when you listen, if you like it, or even if you hate it, let us know what you think.
Yeah, even if you like us, hate us.
Yeah, if you want to say, you guys suck, man, stop doing it. Let us know.
Please.
All right, well, we're going to finish the show now with another track from Tonic Breed. This is the song, Fifth Estate. See you next time.
Hello.
Hey, Buke, it's George. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. I'm okay. Just hanging out.
So I was sitting here cutting this week's podcast, and I looked at the calendar, and I was like, holy crap, we failed to mention the fact that this week, this Friday, in fact, is 4 years since the passing of Ronnie James Dio.
You know what? It certainly was. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know how we forgot that. It's funny because we even talked about Dio doing our top three and everything, and I was wondering if maybe we could just get away with being like, yeah, that's our tribute. But
no, he's
I don't know.
Definitely not fitting for someone of his place in metal.
Yeah, exactly. So I was thinking maybe we should do something now, and I could just sort of grandfather it into the podcast somewhere.
Certainly.
So tell me this: what was your first time you heard Dio?
Oh man, let me think. My first exposure to Dio, I had always heard the song "Rainbow in the Dark," but that was just growing up, and it was always one of those things you kind of know the chorus to it, but I didn't really know because I was too young. Born in early '80s, I didn't really know who was singing it.
Right.
But I knew the song when it came on, kind of like one of those songs that plays on those late night, ads. You know what the song is, but you don't know who it is. So for years I would hear that song, and then when I met you, and you introduced me to Dio, you gave me one of his albums, and that was just love at first listen, to put it that way.
Off to the races.
Yep.
Yeah, my first. I actually have two first experiences. There was the first experience when I didn't, like you said, I didn't know who it was, which was when I picked up Mob Rules.
Okay.
I knew about Black Sabbath, and I actually didn't know that they had multiple singers at one point. And I knew Ozzy. I didn't even really know Ozzy was in Sabbath at that point. I was still pretty young. And I bought, on the Columbia Record and Tape Club, I bought, Black Sabbath, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll, which is, of course, all the good Ozzy stuff. And I got Mob Rules. And I really dug that, the whole Sign of the Southern Cross and stuff like that. So, but I didn't realize that was Ronnie James Dio. So then my first knowledge of Dio came... I used to go to this store in Ann Arbor, Michigan called Record Town, and I would go in and browse through. They had a very small heavy metal section, cassette tapes, and I'd browse through it, and I saw Holy Diver, and
Great
Last
album
in Line.
cover.
Yes, and that's what drew me in, was that, and the Last in Line was there as well. And I saw them. I never bought them. I never heard them, but I was like, this is cool. I'm going to have to come back and get this. And then by the time I finally decided and had the money to do it, that I was going to come back and pick up some Dio.
It was gone, right?
What's that?
I thought you were going to tell me it was gone, and then you missed your opportunity and you had to come on back.
Well, actually what it was is I got there and there was a third choice, and that was Sacred Heart.
Oh.
And I was like, well, I should probably try the newest one, see what that's like. So I bought Sacred Heart instead of Holy Diver. And,
which you just shared on the podcast this past week. That was your number one favorite Dio.
Exactly. That's why. It's because
and
it was
that's
my
actually
first
that's what you started me off with.
Yeah, because that's what I think is what everybody should start with. I mean, maybe it should be Holy Diver, but I don't know. Sentimental attachment to that album is high.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
And and then since it was I get a constant reminder of Dio. Me being a big animal guy. 4 years ago, my wife and I got our new puppy, and kind of to honor Dio, who died this time 4 years ago. We got our dog in June. And we named him Dio.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I know that you named him Dio. I didn't realize it was quite so soon after his passing. That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
I can't top that. I asked my wife. I was like, "We have any kids? Can we name him Dio?" But she wasn't into that. So
see, that's why I'm mad at my wife that we're having a girl. Can't work in the Dio name yet.
You could be Doro or something like that.
So, when was the first experience you actually got to see him or one of his bands live?
It actually took quite a while for me to see them. I think the first time I saw him was actually at the Wrecker in Towson, Maryland.
Wow, you didn't even get to see him back home. Wow.
No, there was, there's just like Overkill. It took me years to see them. It's just the planets never aligned to the point where I was able to go see him. And, I saw him in the Wrecker, for those who don't know, is a teeny-ass little club. And so I got real up and close and personal with Ronnie at that point, and I really treasure that. And I saw him a couple other times after that. Once I saw him again solo. I can't remember who that was with. He wasn't headlining. It was like with Iron Maiden or something. And then, of course, the Heaven and Hell.
Yeah, no, that was my first and only experience seeing him.
Yeah, that was
now,
pretty
I guess
awesome, too.
So. Seeing him up close at Wrecker, is he the short-statured man like I always heard and saw in pictures that he was?
Yeah, I mean, you see him in pictures and videos and stuff. And obviously, if he stands next to somebody else, he looked kind of small. But seeing him up close like that, I was like, wow, he's such a big voice out of such a small frame. It was incredible. But he told some stories, and it was really great. And I'm glad to have that memory.
Yeah, the Heaven and Hell show is definitely on the list of one of my top shows ever.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, I guess I'll go back and finish editing the podcast, and maybe we'll see if we can squeeze this in there somewhere.
While I got you on the phone, what do you think his lasting legacy to heavy metal is? Because I'll say for me, I'll answer that first. That I think when you talk about the metal greats, one of those voices for the ages. I never read a lot of articles and interviews that he was, really saying stupid shit and stuff like other band members do from other things, to always keep him in the press and stuff like that. Or, he wasn't wrecking cars or wrecking hotel rooms or doing all this crazy stuff that would keep his name out there. It's just Dio, his name was always spoke of with other band members, other bands, fans, just for having that voice. That voice will stick around forever.
Yeah, I mean, he was, he obviously, he wasn't the guy that would typically go out and get crazy and wreck the cars and stuff like that. He was, I think he was more of a thinker, more of a dreamer, and from all accounts, an incredibly nice and generous person. I wish I could have met him,
From the things I've read about him in tributes since his passing, he comes off, too, as a very humble man also.
Yeah, it sounded like he liked to focus on other people rather than himself.
Yeah. And may I say, I really, sometimes don't sit down and try and take lyrics to, a different level and really sit and think about them after I've, heard the song and moved on. But some of his lyrics, boy, about life are really poignant and
Oh yeah.
Really have you, when the song's over, you're still sitting there thinking about it.
Yeah, I've got a handful of songs at least that, when I listen to them, they'll draw tears out of me,
Yeah, same for me.
Good stuff. So.
Okay, well, thanks for calling me. We certainly could not, pass over giving Ronnie James here a nod here.
Yeah, no, I was like, I knew it was coming. I don't know how we talked about it, and it didn't even occur to me. So, boy, hopefully this will rectify the situation.
I think it certainly will. I think he'd be happy.
Yeah. This is our midweek
hey, since perfect time just again to mention if anybody has not gone out, go to your store, go online, pick up the new Ronnie James tribute album, This Is Your Life. That was
we didn't talk about that, did we?
Yeah, there's, you did a video review of it for your weekly thing.
Yeah, that's why I probably went out of my mind, because I already covered it in two places. But hell yeah,
it is one of the better tributes. There's Anthrax on there, Tenacious D, Metallica does a Rainbow medley.
I was listening to this again yesterday or the day before on the drive home from work, and I honestly think that the best song on that tribute is the Tenacious D.
Isn't that great?
And it's like, they're not that they're not real musicians or anything. That's obvious that they're good musicians, but you're so used to seeing them doing the comedic stuff that Jack and Kyle playing it totally straight and doing this tribute to someone that, I know they knew him. Obviously,
they knew him. To him, they looked up to him just like we do. There were reasons why Jack and Kyle started, playing.
Yeah, and so to hear them crush that song so well that, that's another one of the instances where I was driving and crying. I was like, oh, this is so awesome. I listened to it like 5 times on the way home.
Yeah,
I wish I went and followed Jack Black on Twitter, just hoping that maybe I could send him a message and be like, dude, you've made me cry.
The funny thing is, when I heard that song, I actually checked Twitter myself to see if I was following them too, so I could send them something. Yeah,
and it turned out Jack Black's got a Twitter account, but it's only got 12 tweets on it in 2 years or something. So I was like, well, I guess he's probably not going to see it if I.
All the funds, really, I don't, tell anybody how to spend their money, but all the funds on this go to benefit the Ronnie James Dio Stand Up to Cancer Fund.
Yeah,
all the money's going to a great cause.
And I heard that there might even be a second one because they couldn't get all the people in they wanted to on the first one.
Man,
all the people that wanted to do it, rather, because of schedules and timing and whatever. So it'd be awesome if there's another one.
Yeah, most of the time I can take covers, here or there. If I don't hear another cover song, I'm fine. But this whole album, I'm just blown away hearing. Yeah,
it's one of the better tributes that I've ever heard.
Yep. So just wanted to get that in there. So.
Yeah, good remembering that.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm gonna take off now, and
yep. You have fun doing your edit work.
Oh yeah, that's always fun.
I'll see you later, buddy.
All right, take it easy, man.